Across the endless tapestry of the Force, a ripple spread, small at first, then vast enough to shake entire systems. It wasn't the will of the Jedi or the rage of the dark side cults. It was something older, deeper, born beyond this galaxy's edge. The living force itself had reached across the void between universes and pulled something through. Something that would walk the ancient world of Ossus and change the course of galactic history forever. The rift opened in silence. No thunder, no blinding flash, just a tear in reality above the ancient temple libraries of Ossus, where the Jedi Order studied the balance between Ashla and Bogan, light and dark, serenity and passion. Through that impossible doorway stepped a figure cloaked in grey, leaning upon a staff that hummed with crystalline resonance. His beard was long and silver, his eyes sharp beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and his presence radiated a quiet authority that made the very air grow still. Gandalf the Grey had arrived in a galaxy far, far away. He stood upon a hillside overlooking vast temple complexes carved from pale stone, their spires reaching toward twin suns that painted the sky in shades of amber and gold. The Force sang around him, not the familiar magic of Middle-earth, but something similar, alive, purposeful. It flowed through every living thing, every stone, every breath of wind across the ancient world. "So," Gandalf murmured, planting his staff firmly into the ground, "this is where you've brought me." The staff pulsed once in response. At its crown, where once a simple carved knot had rested, now gleamed a kyber crystal, pale blue and thrumming with energy. The Force had bonded with his Maya essence during the crossing, transforming his focus into something new, something that belonged to this galaxy. He began walking down the hillside toward the nearest temple, his grey robes billowing in the warm breeze. Ancient ruins dotted the landscape, monuments to civilizations that had risen and fallen long before the Jedi came to Ossus. Gandalf recognized the weight of history here. This was a world where knowledge was treasured, where seekers of truth came to learn the mysteries of existence itself. A group of Jedi students noticed him first. They were young, humans, Keldor, a Twi'lek, practicing lightsaber forms in a courtyard beneath towering statues of ancient Force users. Their blades hummed in perfect synchronization until one student, a human girl with dark braided hair, stopped mid-strike. Her green blade dimmed as she turned toward the approaching wanderer. "Master Taran," she called to her instructor. "Someone's coming. I can feel him in the Force, but he's different." The Jedi Master, a tall Zabrak whose horned head bore intricate tattoos, turned toward Gandalf. Through the Force, he could sense the newcomer, a presence that walked perfectly between Ashla and Bogan, neither blazing with light nor shadowed by darkness. Pure balance made manifest. "Hold your positions," Master Taran commanded quietly. Gandalf approached the courtyard's entrance and stopped, leaning on his staff with both hands. He offered them a gentle smile. "Forgive the intrusion. I seem to have taken a rather unexpected journey, and I find myself in need of guidance. This is Ossus, is it not?" Master Taran stepped forward, his students maintaining defensive stances. "It is. And you are?" "I have had many names," Gandalf replied, his voice carrying the weight of ages. "But you may call me Mithrandir, or simply the Wanderer." "You walk between Ashla and Bogan," Taran observed, his Force sense studying every aspect of the stranger's being. "Yet you are neither Jedi nor dark side adept. What are you?" Gandalf's eyes twinkled. "A servant of powers greater than myself, a wielder of what you might call the deeper magics, and now, it seems, a student of what you call the living Force." He lifted his staff slightly, and the kyber crystal flared with gentle light. "This galaxy has much to teach an old wanderer." The students exchanged nervous glances. The dark-haired girl spoke up. That crystal, it's attuned to you, but you're not Jedi. How is that possible? The Force flows through all living things, does it not? Gandalf asked, his tone patient and warm, a teacher's voice. I am very much alive, young one, though perhaps not in the way you understand life. Where I come from, we call it different names. Here you call it the Force. But the truth remains the same. It binds all things, connects all beings, and seeks balance above all else. Master Taran's posture relaxed slightly. You speak like one who has studied for centuries. Longer than that, I'm afraid, Gandalf admitted with a slight chuckle. Though I confess, your temples and your teachings are new to me. I would be grateful to learn from your order, if you would permit an old stranger such a privilege. Before Taran could respond, a tremor ran through the Force, subtle but undeniable. Every Jedi in the courtyard felt it, a ripple of darkness from deep beneath Ossus's surface, stirring as if awakened by Gandalf's arrival. Ancient, hungry, patient, Gandalf's expression grew serious. His staff struck the ground once, and a pulse of light spread outward, not aggressive, but protective, warding. It seems my presence has disturbed something that was sleeping. Forgive me. That was not my intention. Master Taran's voice carried new urgency. The ancient vaults beneath Ossus, we've kept them sealed for generations, prisons for dark side entities too powerful to destroy. You've awakened them? Not awakened, Gandalf corrected gently, merely reminded them that there are forces in this universe older than their malice. He turned his gaze toward the distant mountains where the darkness stirred. They will test us soon, but that is a conversation for another moment. He looked back to Taran with that same patient smile. First, I believe introductions are in order, and perhaps you might direct me to your council. I suspect they'll want to meet the stranger who just arrived through a dimensional rift. Despite the lingering tension, Master Taran found himself almost smiling. Follow me, Wanderer, but know this, the Jedi do not trust easily. You'll need to prove yourself. I would expect nothing less, Gandalf replied warmly. Trust must be earned, after all. A wizard is never late to that particular lesson. If you want to see more legendary characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The great library of Ossus rose like a monument to eternity itself. Vast halls stretched beneath crystalline domes that focused the twin suns' light into patterns across ancient stone floors. Holocrons lined the walls, thousands of them, glowing softly with recorded wisdom spanning millennia. The air smelled of old parchment, ozone from active Force techniques, and the faint mineral scent of the kyber crystals embedded throughout the architecture. Gandalf walked these halls with Master Taran, his staff tapping rhythmically against the floor. Each step echoed through chambers where Jedi scholars meditated, studied, and practiced the delicate art of balance. Some looked up as he passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to wariness. A grey-robed stranger radiating ancient power was not something seen on Ossus every millennium. The council awaits in the Chamber of Balance, Taran explained as they climbed a spiral staircase carved from a single massive crystal formation. They have sensed your arrival, and the stirring below. I would expect nothing less from those who walk between light and shadow, Gandalf replied. Tell me, Master Taran, how long has your order maintained this balance? Since the Jedi were founded on Tython over 10,000 years ago, Taran answered with clear pride. We rejected the extremes. Too much ashla leads to passionless detachment. Too much bogan leads to destructive chaos. Only in balance can one truly understand the Force. Gandalf nodded approvingly. A wise philosophy. I have seen what happens when power tips too far in either direction. Light that burns so bright it blinds. Darkness so deep it devours everything, even itself. His grip tightened on his staff. Balance is the hardest path to walk. It requires constant vigilance. They reached the chamber, a circular room with 7 seats arranged in a half-circle, each occupied by a Jedi master. The floor was inlaid with a massive symbol, a circle divided by a flowing line, one half pale, one half dark, perfectly balanced. At the room's center stood a pillar of pure kyber crystal, pulsing gently with the living force. 7 pairs of eyes, some biological, some perceiving through the force alone, fixed on Gandalf as he entered. The eldest master, a Sith pureblood named Korith, whose red skin bore intricate tattoos of ancient Jedi symbols, spoke first. His voice was measured, neither welcoming nor hostile. You stand before the Council of Ossus, stranger. Master Taran tells us you carry power unlike any we have encountered. Yet you walked into our temple openly, without deception. Why? Gandalf stepped forward, planting his staff before him. The kyber crystal at its crown resonated with the pillar behind the council, creating a harmonic tone that filled the chamber. Because I am a wanderer and a seeker of wisdom, Master Korith. Where I come from, I was sent to guide and counsel, never to dominate. I see no reason to change that purpose simply because I find myself in a new galaxy. A Cathar master named Vashara leaned forward, her feline features intent. The darkness beneath Ossus stirs because of you. The entities imprisoned in the deep vaults, sealed there after the first wars between Ashla and Bogan, they react to your presence. Are you their herald? Quite the opposite, Gandalf replied calmly. Where I come from, I fought against a great darkness for longer than your order has existed. I am no stranger to ancient evils that wait in shadow for their moment to return. His eyes grew distant, remembering battles fought in another universe. The darkness stirs not because I serve it, but because it recognizes a threat. Master Korith exchanged glances with his fellow council members. Through the Force, they held a silent conversation that lasted only seconds. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, still cautious but curious. You claim to have lived for millennia, yet you are not a Force ghost, not a holocron's echo. What manner of being are you? In my world, we called my kind Maya, Gandalf explained. Servants of higher powers, sent to guide the peoples of Middle-earth against the darkness. I do not age as mortals do. I cannot die as they die. When my physical form is destroyed, my essence endures, and I may be sent back to complete my task. He gestured to the kyber crystal atop his staff. The Force recognized this nature when I arrived. It gave me this, a bridge between what I was and what I must become here. A human master named Celis spoke up, her voice filled with scholarly fascination. A being of pure spiritual essence, given physical form to enact a purpose. This aligns with ancient Jedi texts about the Force itself. The idea that consciousness and energy are fundamentally one. She stood, approaching Gandalf with careful respect. May I examine your connection to the Force? Gandalf inclined his head. You may try. Master Celis extended her hand, and the Force flowed between them, a gentle probe, not invasive but seeking understanding. Her eyes widened almost immediately. By Ashla and Bogan, you're not connected to the Force. You are Force. Or rather, you're made of the same fundamental essence. Your being is woven from spiritual energy, given will and purpose. An apt description, Gandalf agreed. The Force and I are not so different. We both serve life. We both oppose the void. We both seek balance in all things. Master Korith rose from his seat, and the other council members followed. It was a gesture of respect, acknowledging an equal. Then you understand what we face, Wanderer. The darkness below grows restless. It will test our defenses, and your arrival may have accelerated its timeline. Then we must be ready, Gandalf said simply. But first, I would ask a favor of your council. Speak, Korith said. Teach me your ways, Gandalf requested. I know my own power, my own purpose, but I do not yet know how the Force flows through this galaxy. Show me your balance, your techniques, your wisdom. In return, I will share what I have learned across ages of struggle against the dark. The council members looked at one another. Finally, Master Vashara smiled. A predator's smile, but genuine. We accept Mithrandir the Wanderer, but know this. If you bring ruin to Ossus, no ancient power will save you from our justice. Gandalf's eyes twinkled. I would expect nothing less. The training grounds of Ossus stretched across a valley where the Force flowed like an invisible river. Here, Jedi students learned to channel both Ashla and Bogan without losing themselves to either extreme. Ancient stone pillars marked meditation points, their surfaces carved with wisdom from 10,000 years of practice. Gandalf stood among them now, his grey robes simple but dignified, his staff never far from hand. Master Celis had become his primary instructor, guiding him through the fundamental exercises that every Jedi initiate learned. She stood before him now in the early morning light, her Force presence calm and observant. Center yourself, she instructed. Feel the Force flowing through you, not controlling it, not bending it to your will, simply becoming part of its natural flow. Gandalf closed his eyes and extended his awareness. The sensation was familiar, yet foreign. In Middle-earth, he had felt the music of creation, the song that Ilúvatar had woven into the fabric of existence. Here, it manifested differently, less melody, more rhythm. The pulse of life itself, beating in every creature, every plant, every molecule of air. I feel it, he murmured. Like a great tapestry, each thread connected to all others. Pull one strand, and the entire pattern shifts. Precisely, Celis's voice carried approval. Now, reach toward that pillar, not with your hand, with the Force. Gandalf extended his awareness toward the stone marker 10 paces away. In his old life, he would have simply commanded it to move through his innate Maiar authority. Here, he had to ask. To work with the Force rather than imposing his will upon reality. The pillar trembled, then lifted, floating 3 feet above the ground with perfect stability. Master Celis nodded, impressed despite herself. Most students take weeks to achieve that level of control. You've been here only 5 days. I've had practice moving objects with power, Gandalf replied, opening his eyes. The principle is the same. Merely the language differs. He gestured, and the pillar settled gently back into place. But I sense something more to your teachings. This balance you speak of. It's not merely about equal parts light and dark, is it? Walk with me, Celis said. They moved through the training grounds, passing students engaged in various exercises. A Zabrak youth channeled lightning from his fingertips. Controlled, measured, neither excessive nor timid. A human girl manipulated flame, her expression serene, despite wielding what most would consider a dark side power. A Nortalan used the Force to accelerate his natural healing, mending a training injury in moments. The galaxy will one day forget this, Celis said quietly, gesturing to the students. Our teachings will be lost or corrupted. I have seen it in visions. The Force shows me a future where orders rise claiming absolute devotion to light or utter surrender to darkness. They will war for millennia, never understanding that both paths lead to destruction. Gandalf's expression grew somber. I have seen this pattern before. In my world, there was a being of great power who fell to darkness because he believed he could impose perfect order through domination. His enemy, in turn, became so devoted to preserving free will that he allowed corruption to spread unchecked. Both extremes created endless suffering. "Then you understand why we fight to preserve balance," Celis replied. "Not the absence of conflict, but the wisdom to know when to act with passion and when to act with serenity, when to create and when to destroy, when to hold tightly and when to let go." They reached a secluded grove where ancient trees grew in spiral patterns, their roots intertwining in complex designs. At the grove's center stood a natural spring, its waters perfectly still despite the breeze that rustled the leaves above. "This is where we bring students who struggle with balance," Celis explained. "Those who lean too heavily toward Ashla find themselves frozen, unable to act when action is necessary. Those who embrace too much Bogan become consumed, losing sight of why they fight." She knelt beside the spring. "The water shows you the truth of yourself. Would you look?" Gandalf approached the spring and peered into its mirror-smooth surface. For a moment, he saw only his reflection, grey-bearded, weathered, ancient beyond measure. Then the image shifted. He saw himself as he had been, Olorin the Maya, a spirit of fire and light serving in the undying lands. He saw his descent into Middle-earth, taking the form of an old man to walk among mortals as Gandalf the Grey. He saw his fall in Moria, plunging into darkness with the Balrog. He saw his return as Gandalf the White, burning with righteous power. But then, the vision continued beyond his memories. He saw himself walking Ossus not for days, but for years, teaching, guiding, warning against the dangers of absolute devotion to either extreme. He saw students who listened and students who did not. He saw the order fracturing, schisms forming, the very teachings he tried to preserve becoming twisted into dogma. And he saw darkness rising from the deep places of Ossus, ancient horrors that had waited centuries for an opportunity, now stirred by the presence of power unlike any this galaxy had known. "The future is not fixed," Celis said softly, reading the concern in his expression. "You see possible paths, not certainty. But the spring rarely shows visions without purpose." Gandalf straightened, his hand tightening on his staff. "Then I must walk carefully. My presence here is a stone dropped in still water. The ripples will spread whether I will it or not." "All the more reason to learn our ways properly," a new voice interjected. Master Corrith emerged from the tree line, his red skin stark against the green foliage. His expression was grave. "The darkness below grows bolder. Last night, 3 Jedi on deep meditation reported visions of the imprisoned entities testing their bonds. They whisper promises of power, trying to seduce students toward Bogan. They sense weakness," Gandalf observed, "not in your order but in the fabric of reality itself. My arrival tore open a path between universes. That wound has not fully healed. The darkness hopes to use it." Master Vishara appeared beside Corrith, her tail lashing once. "Then let them try. We have faced dark side abominations before." "Not like these," Gandalf warned, his voice carrying the weight of ancient memory. "I have fought beings who sought to unmake creation itself. If the entities beneath Ossus are even remotely similar, caution is not cowardice, it is wisdom." Corrith met Gandalf's eyes. "Then teach us, Wanderer. Show us how one fights darkness that has existed since before time." Gandalf smiled grimly. "With patience, with cunning, and when necessary with fire and lightning that has burned since the world was young." The Kyber caverns beneath Ossus descended into the planet's heart, like the roots of an ancient tree. Luminescent crystals lined the walls, casting blue and green light across passages carved by millennia of water flow. Here, Jedi came to find their kyber crystals, the living stones that would bond with their lightsabers and channel the Force through focused energy. Gandalf walked these tunnels with Master Celis and Master Koreth, his staff clicking against stone with each step. The crystal at its crown pulsed in rhythm with the cavern's natural resonance, as if recognizing kindred spirits in the formations around them. Most Jedi spend weeks in meditation before their crystal calls to them, Celis explained, her voice echoing softly through the chambers. The crystal chooses the wielder as much as the wielder chooses the crystal. It's a bond of mutual recognition, the Force flowing through both stone and flesh, finding harmony. Yet my staff already carries such a crystal, Gandalf observed, holding his staff forward. The pale blue stone at its crown blazed brighter in response to the surrounding crystal's presence. It appeared during my passage between worlds. The Force itself provided it. Which raises fascinating questions, Koreth said, his scholarly curiosity evident despite his normally stern demeanor. Did the Force create a new crystal for you, or did it call one from these very caverns to meet you in the space between universes? He gestured toward a side passage that sloped deeper underground. I've brought you here because I believe your staff's crystal originated from the deep vaults, the oldest section of these caverns, where kyber has grown since Ossus was young. They descended further, leaving behind the well-traveled paths for narrow tunnels where few Jedi ventured. The temperature dropped. The crystals here glowed with different hues, deep purples, dark reds, colors that seemed to shift between light and shadow. This is where we sealed the darkness, Koreth said quietly. 5 entities, captured during the ancient wars between Force users. Too powerful to destroy, so our ancestors imprisoned them in kyber crystal matrices. Cages made of the living Force itself. Gandalf could feel them now. Not merely darkness, but hunger. Consciousness twisted by millennia of isolation and rage. They had once been beings of terrible power, and some fragment of that power remained, pressing against their crystalline prisons like hands pushing against thin ice. They know you're here, Celis warned. They've been calling out through the Force since you arrived on Ossus. Some students have reported dreams, visions of power beyond imagination, promises of strength that transcends balance. A familiar trap, Gandalf murmured. He approached the nearest prison, a massive cluster of dark purple crystals that pulsed with malevolent energy. Within its depths, something moved. In my world, there was a dark lord who offered similar promises: power, dominion, the ability to reshape reality according to one's will. Many fell to his lies. A voice slithered through his mind, cold and ancient. You are not of this galaxy, wanderer. We sense it, we smell it. Power from beyond the stars, untainted by the Force's limitations. Free us, and we will show you secrets this primitive order cannot comprehend. Gandalf's staff struck the ground, and white light blazed through the chamber. The voice recoiled, hissing. I have faced the likes of you before, he said aloud. I am not interested in your secrets. The chamber trembled. Not violently, but enough to send loose pebbles skittering across the floor. All 5 crystal prisons pulsed in unison, and suddenly Gandalf felt the full weight of their attention. 5 ancient minds, focusing on him with terrible intensity. He resists, a second voice whispered. He is strong, acknowledged a third. But he is alone, a fourth concluded. And loneliness breeds doubt. The 5th finished, its tone almost pitying. They began showing him visions, not temptations of power, but something more insidious. Memories from his own past, his friends in Middle-earth left behind, Frodo bearing the ring without his guidance, Aragorn facing armies without his counsel. The Fellowship scattered, each member facing dangers that Gandalf could no longer help them overcome. You abandoned them, The voices whispered. You were pulled away by forces beyond your control, and now they suffer without you. This galaxy is not your responsibility. Find a way home. Return to those who need you. Gandalf's jaw tightened. The visions struck deep because they touched a genuine wound. The uncertainty of not knowing if his friends had survived, if his mission in Middle-earth remained incomplete. But he had faced doubt before. He had fallen into darkness and returned. He had died and been reborn. These entities, powerful as they were, could not break him with sentiment. I go where I am sent, Gandalf said firmly. My purpose is not my own to choose. If I am here, it is because here is where I am needed. His staff blazed brighter. And you will not use my care for others as a weapon against me. The voices laughed, a sound like grinding stone and shattering ice. Then we will use this galaxy's children instead. They are not as strong as you, Wanderer. They will break. They will open our prisons. And when we are free, we will remind this galaxy what true power means. Master Celis had fallen to her knees, overwhelmed by the psychic pressure radiating from the prisons. Gandalf moved to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. Warmth and light flowed from the wizard, bolstering her mental defenses, pushing back the crushing weight of ancient malice. Stand, Master Celis, Gandalf said gently. Do not let them see fear. They feed on it. Celis rose on shaking legs, her scholarly composure cracked but not shattered. I've studied these entities for years. I've never felt them this active, this coordinated. They're organizing something. Indeed they are, Gandalf agreed, his gaze sweeping across all 5 prisons. They believe my arrival has weakened the barriers between worlds. They hope to exploit that weakness. He turned toward the exit. We must inform the Council immediately. These creatures are not content to wait any longer. They will move against Ossus soon, and we must be ready. Master Koreth's expression was grim. What do they want most, Wanderer? What drives beings of such power? Gandalf paused at the tunnel entrance, looking back at the pulsing crystal prisons. Freedom, but not to create or build or contribute. Freedom to consume, to corrupt, to reduce everything they touch to ash and shadow. His voice hardened. That is what we must prevent at any cost. As they climbed back toward the surface, none of them noticed the hairline crack that had appeared in the western prison's matrix, so small as to be nearly invisible, but present nonetheless. The darkness had begun its work. 3 weeks passed on Ossus, and the tension grew like a storm gathering on the horizon. Gandalf spent his days moving between the training grounds and the library archives, studying Jedi techniques while sharing his own wisdom with any student willing to listen. His nights were spent in meditation, attempting to understand the connection between his Maiar essence and the living force that flowed through this galaxy. The bond grew stronger each day, his staff's kyber crystal resonating more perfectly with his inner fire. But beneath the surface, darkness worked its patient schemes. Master Taran found Gandalf one evening in the Hall of Records, surrounded by ancient holocrons that detailed the imprisonment of the 5 entities below. The Zabrak's tattooed face was troubled, his usual composure strained. Mithrandir, Taran said quietly, closing the door behind him. We have a problem. Several problems, actually. Gandalf set down the holocron he'd been studying. Tell me. Students are reporting nightmares, Taran began. Not occasional bad dreams, but persistent visions. They see the imprisoned entities offering them power, showing them futures where they become legendary force users. Some wake screaming, others wake smiling. He paused, choosing his words carefully. And there's been a change in behavior among certain students. More arguments, more aggression during training. A general sense of unease that's spreading through the younger initiates. The darkness is sowing seeds, Gandalf observed. dividing your order from within before it makes its move from without. It's a strategy as old as evil itself. Corrupt the vulnerable first, then use them as weapons against the strong. Taran's hands clenched. That's not all. This morning we found dark side corruption seeping through one of the training halls. Nothing catastrophic, but it shouldn't be there at all. The wards should prevent any taint from reaching the upper levels. Gandalf stood, his expression grave. Show me. They walked through moonlit corridors to the affected training hall. Even before entering, Gandalf could sense it. A wrongness in the Force, like a sour note in an otherwise harmonious melody. The corruption manifested as a dark stain spreading across the floor, visible only to those who could perceive the Force directly. Master Celes was already there, along with 2 other Jedi attempting to cleanse the taint. Their combined efforts pushed the darkness back, but it reformed each time, stubborn and persistent. It's connected to something below, Celes reported, frustration evident in her voice. Every time we purge it, it returns within the hour. The source is too strong, too deeply rooted. Gandalf knelt beside the corruption, extending his awareness into it without touching directly. His staff glowed with protective light, warding against the darkness's attempts to latch onto his consciousness. What he sensed made his jaw tighten. This isn't random seepage, he said. This is deliberate. The entities below are pushing their influence through the smallest cracks in their prisons, testing how far they can reach. And they're learning. He stood, turning to face the assembled masters. The Western prison, the one with the hairline crack we discovered. That's where this is coming from. We reinforced those wards, Taran protested. Triple-checked every seal. The crack hasn't grown. It doesn't need to grow, Gandalf replied. Not yet. They're using it as a conduit, feeding corruption through it drop by drop, poisoning Ossus from within. It's patient work, but effective. If left unchecked, the entire temple will become a breeding ground for dark side influence. Master Koreth arrived then, his red skin seeming darker in the corrupted chamber's atmosphere. The council is convening emergency session. They want your assessment, Wanderer, and they want it now. The council chamber felt different tonight. The balanced symbol on the floor seemed less certain, its dividing line between light and dark wavering slightly in everyone's Force perception. All 7 council members were present, along with senior masters from across the temple complex. Master Vishara spoke first, her Cathar features tight with concern. The situation is escalating. We've had 4 more students request transfers to other temples in the past week. 2 masters reported being unable to maintain deep meditation. They're being bombarded with dark whispers every time they try. And now we have physical corruption manifesting in our training halls. Mithrandir, you've fought darkness across ages. What are we facing? Gandalf stood at the chamber's center, his staff planted firmly before him. You're facing a coordinated assault on multiple fronts. The entities below are not 5 separate threats. They're acting as one unified intelligence. They've had millennia to learn patience, to understand strategy, to coordinate their efforts. And they're using my arrival as the catalyst they've been waiting for. Explain, Koreth commanded. The dimensional rift that brought me here created a momentary weakness in the fabric of reality around Ossus, Gandalf said. That weakness has mostly healed, but the entities sensed it. They learned that barriers can be broken, that prisons are not eternal, that change is possible. This gave them hope, and hope, even dark hope, is a powerful motivator. A human master named Jorath spoke up. So what do? We can't undo your arrival. Should we attempt to strengthen the prisons further? Strengthening the prisons addresses the symptom, not the disease, Gandalf replied. The true danger isn't that they might escape. It's that they're already escaping piece by piece through corruption and manipulation. They're building an army of influence students who will eventually open those prisons willingly. The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Master Celis broke the quiet. "You're saying we can't trust our own students?" "I'm saying the entities are excellent at finding the vulnerable," Gandalf corrected gently. "Those who feel inadequate, who hunger for recognition, who believe themselves overlooked or underappreciated. Every organization has such individuals. The darkness will find them, nurture their grievances, and turn them into tools. Then we need to identify who's been compromised," Vishara said, her predator's instincts sharpening. "Root them out before they can act. And risk creating exactly the kind of paranoid, suspicious atmosphere that will drive more students into darkness," Gandalf challenged. "No, witch hunts create more witches. We need a different approach." "What do you suggest?" Korath asked. Gandalf was quiet for a long moment, his ancient eyes distant. "Transparency, honesty, trust. We tell the students what we're facing. We explain the danger. We teach them to recognize manipulation when they see it. And we offer them the choice to stand with the light, to serve balance, or to walk away from Ossus entirely if they cannot resist the call of darkness." "You want us to admit weakness to our students?" Jorath asked, incredulous. "That will destroy their faith in us." "Their faith should be in the Force, not in your infallibility," Gandalf replied. "You cannot be perfect guardians. You are beings who struggle and doubt and sometimes fail, and that's precisely what makes your choice to keep trying meaningful. Show them that. Let them see that even masters face temptation and choose to resist. That's far more powerful than pretending the darkness holds no appeal." Master Korath studied Gandalf with his ancient, calculating gaze. "You speak from experience. I speak from watching friends fall to corruption because they were too proud to admit they were struggling," Gandalf said quietly. "I speak from my own experience of falling into literal darkness and having to claw my way back. Pretending we're above temptation doesn't protect us. It makes us vulnerable to it." The council exchanged glances, silent Force communication flowing between them. Finally, Korath nodded. "We'll address the students tomorrow. Full assembly. Complete honesty about the threat we face." "Good," Gandalf said. "But there's one more thing we must do." "What?" Celis asked. "We must go back into the deep vaults," Gandalf replied. "And we must speak directly to the entities, not to negotiate. Negotiation implies they have legitimate grievances, but to understand exactly what they're planning, how they're coordinating, and whether there's any weakness in their alliance we can exploit." Vishara's ears flattened against her skull. "That's incredibly dangerous. They nearly overwhelmed Celis last time, and you were there to protect her. If they focus their full attention on whoever descends into those vaults, then I will go alone," Gandalf said simply. "They cannot consume what they cannot understand, and I am something they have never encountered before. A consciousness from beyond their galaxy, beyond their experience, beyond their ability to fully manipulate." "Absolutely not," Master Terran objected. "You're too valuable to risk. If they destroy you, then you will have learned something valuable about their capabilities," Gandalf interrupted. "And you will find another way to defeat them. But I do not believe they will destroy me. They're too curious, too eager to understand what I am. That curiosity is the opening I need." Master Korath rose from his seat, a gesture that commanded attention. "The council will vote. All in favor of allowing Mithrandir to descend into the vaults for direct contact with the imprisoned entities?" One by one, hands rose, reluctant, worried, but unanimous. "Then it's decided," Korath said. "But you will not go entirely alone, Wanderer. We will maintain a Force connection from the surface, anchoring you to the light. If you begin to fall, we will pull you back." Gandalf bowed his head in gratitude. "Then I will descend at dawn. The darkness is strongest at night, when doubts and fears run deepest. I would face them when the suns rise, when hope is renewed, when the light reminds us all why we resist the shadow." As the council dispersed, Master Celis approached him. "You don't have to do this, you know. There are other ways to gather information." "Perhaps," Gandalf agreed, "but none as direct, and time is something we're rapidly running out of." He looked toward the floor, as if seeing through stone to the prisons far below. They're moving pieces into position. Students they've corrupted, plans they've laid, corruption they've spread. Whatever they're planning, it will happen soon. I need to know what we're truly facing before it begins. "Be careful, old wizard," Celis said softly. "This galaxy has only just met you. It would be a shame to lose you so quickly." Gandalf smiled, though his eyes remained serious. "I have died before, Master Celis, and I came back. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to beings like me. Failure is worse. Giving up is worse. Letting darkness win because we were too afraid to face it is worse." He turned toward his quarters. "I will rest now. Tomorrow I descend into the deep places, and we shall see what ancient evils have to say to an old wanderer who has heard it all before." Dawn broke over Ossus with unusual stillness. No birds sang. No wind stirred the ancient trees. Even the Force itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come. Gandalf stood at the entrance to the deep caverns, dressed in his grey robes, his staff planted firmly before him. Behind him, every master in the temple had gathered, forming a meditation circle that would anchor him to the light. Students watched from the upper terraces, their young faces troubled but determined. Master Korith had addressed them at yesterday's assembly, explaining the threat with complete honesty. Some had been frightened, others had been angry, but most had simply nodded, grateful to finally understand why their dreams had been troubled, why the temple felt different, why the masters seemed worried. Master Celis approached, carrying a small vial of water from the Grove of Balance. "To remind you of where you stand," she said, offering it to him. Gandalf accepted it and drank. The water was cool and pure, tasting of life and wisdom accumulated over millennia. "Thank you. I will carry this clarity with me into the darkness." Master Vishara stepped forward next, her warrior's instincts evident in her posture. "If you need to retreat, don't let pride keep you there. We'll sense if you're in trouble and pull you back through the Force connection." "I appreciate that," Gandalf replied, "though I suspect pride is exactly what these entities will appeal to. They're quite good at finding whatever lever moves each individual." Master Taran was last to approach. "The students are watching, Mithrandir. Whatever happens down there, know that you've already changed Ossus. Your honesty, your willingness to face darkness without pretending you're immune to it, that matters. That teaches more than any technique." Gandalf placed a hand on the Zabrak's shoulder. "Then I hope I can teach them one more lesson today. That even ancient evil can be faced, understood, and opposed. That knowledge is a weapon darkness cannot withstand." He turned toward the cavern entrance and descended. The tunnels were darker than before, the luminescent crystals dimmed as if withdrawing their light in the presence of what was about to occur. Gandalf's staff provided the only illumination, its kyber crystal casting pale blue light across walls that seemed to press inward with each step deeper. He reached the chamber of 5 prisons alone. The massive crystal formations pulsed with eager anticipation. All 5 entities had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, coordinating their approach. Gandalf could feel their combined attention focusing on him like a physical weight. "I am here," he announced simply, planting his staff at the chamber's center. "You wish to speak with me? Very well, speak." For a moment, there was only silence. Then all 5 voices spoke in perfect unison, a choir of corruption that would have driven most beings mad. "Welcome, O Lorin of the Maiar. We know your true name. We have tasted your essence. We have plumbed your memories. You are far from home, far from purpose, far from the powers that sent you. You are alone in ways these Jedi cannot comprehend." "I am never alone," Gandalf replied calmly. "The Force connects all living things. The light exists wherever beings choose to kindle it, and I carry my purpose within me, regardless of what galaxy I walk." Such conviction, such certainty, yet we sense your doubt. You wonder if your friends in Middle-earth survived without you. You wonder if this galaxy truly needs you, or if your presence has caused more harm than good. You wonder if the Valar made a mistake, pulling you here when your mission there remained incomplete. "Of course I wonder those things," Gandalf acknowledged. "Doubt is not weakness, it's honesty. Only fools claim complete certainty. Only the arrogant believe they're incapable of error." The Western entity, the one whose prison bore the hairline crack, spoke individually now. Its voice was smoother than the others, more seductive. "Then let us offer you certainty, Wanderer. We know why you're here. The Force itself called you, pulled you through the dimensional barrier because it sensed a disturbance coming. A great imbalance that would tear this galaxy apart. You are meant to prevent that imbalance." "By freeing you?" Gandalf asked dryly. "Forgive me if I find that interpretation convenient for your purposes." "By understanding us," the entity corrected. "We are not mindless evil, despite what the Jedi believe. We were once like you, servants of a greater purpose, warriors against genuine darkness. But we learned a terrible truth. Balance is a lie. The universe tends toward entropy. Order is temporary. Chaos is eternal. The Jedi teach balance, but they're fighting against the fundamental nature of existence itself." "I've heard similar arguments before," Gandalf said, "from a fallen Maya named Sauron, who claimed he only sought order, from a wizard named Saruman, who believed the age of simple goodness had passed, and pragmatism required embracing power regardless of its source. Both were wrong. Both fell to darkness, not because the universe is inherently chaotic, but because they chose pride over wisdom." Another entity spoke, older, deeper, more tired. "You judge us without understanding what we faced, the wars we fought, the horrors we opposed. We imprisoned ourselves in these crystals willingly, Olorin. We chose this fate because we knew our power had become dangerous, our methods too extreme. We were trying to protect this galaxy from ourselves." Gandalf's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features. "You imprisoned yourselves. The Jedi helped, but yes," the ancient entity confirmed. "We asked them to seal us away until we could master our own darkness, until we could learn true balance. That was 3,000 years ago, and in those 3 millennia, we have learned nothing except how to hate our captivity. We have become the very darkness we sought to escape. Your arrival reminded us that change is possible, that prisons can be broken, that perhaps there is still hope for redemption." The other entities hissed at this admission, their voices rising in protest. "Silence, Thalas. We agreed not to. You risk everything with this honesty. The Wanderer will use this against us." "Enough!" Gandalf's voice cracked like thunder through the chamber, his staff blazing with sudden brilliance. "If even one fragment of that story is true, then you are not beyond reach. But I need to know, is this truth, or simply a more sophisticated manipulation?" The ancient entity, Thalas, spoke quietly. "It is truth, but it is also irrelevant. 3 millennia of isolation have broken us beyond repair. What we were no longer matters. What we have become is all that remains. We tell you this not to gain your sympathy, but to warn you. The Jedi believe they can maintain balance indefinitely. They cannot. Eventually, everyone tips too far in one direction or another. Eventually, everyone becomes what they oppose. It is only a matter of time." "No," Gandalf said firmly. "It is a matter of choice. Every moment, every breath, every thought, we choose. We choose to resist or surrender, to build or destroy, to kindle light or embrace shadow. You chose isolation over seeking help. You chose to let bitterness fester rather than calling out for aid. And now you choose to corrupt students rather than warning them away from your mistakes. We corrupt them because we are corruption, the Western entity hissed. We cannot help what we have become, and soon, very soon, one of your precious students will complete what we have begun. The crack in my prison will widen. I will be free. And then, wanderer, you will see what 3,000 years of hatred can accomplish. Gandalf's eyes narrowed. Which student? All 5 entities laughed, a sound that shook the chamber and sent crystalline dust raining from the ceiling. You think we'll tell you? You think we'll give away our carefully cultivated pawn? No, O Lorin. You will watch helplessly, as one you have likely taught, one you have likely comforted, one you have likely trusted, becomes our instrument of freedom. And you will blame yourself, as you blamed yourself for Boromir's fall, for Saruman's betrayal, for every student who ever disappointed you. I do blame myself for those failures, Gandalf admitted, but I learn from them, I adapt. I try again, better informed, more careful, more aware. That's what you've forgotten how to do. Learn, adapt, grow. You've been stagnant for 3,000 years. I've been changing for far longer. That makes me far more dangerous than you realize. He raised his staff high, and white fire erupted from its crystal, not attacking the prisons, but illuminating the entire chamber with blinding brilliance. The entities shrieked, recoiling from light they hadn't experienced in millennia. I came here to understand you, Gandalf declared, his voice resonating with ancient authority. And now I do. You are broken beings who chose imprisonment over healing, isolation over community, bitterness over growth. You are worthy of pity, but you are not worthy of freedom. Not yet. Not until you learn to choose differently. You cannot stop us, the Western entity snarled. The wheels are already in motion. Today, tonight, soon, our liberation approaches, and there is nothing you can do to prevent it. We shall see, Gandalf replied. He turned toward the exit, then paused. Thalos, the ancient one who remembers what you were. If any part of you still wishes redemption, give me a sign. Help me identify which student has been compromised most deeply. You need not betray your fellow prisoners entirely. Just give me a chance to save one young life from becoming what you have become. Silence. Then, so quietly that only Gandalf's enhanced senses caught it, the ancient entity whispered a single word. Storm. Gandalf's eyes widened in recognition and horror. He knew exactly who Thalos meant. He ran for the surface, his staff blazing with urgent light, his connection to the masters above shouting warning through the force. But even as he climbed, he feared he was already too late. Gandalf burst from the cavern entrance into chaos. The meditation circle had broken. Masters were scattered across the courtyard, some still kneeling in confused disarray, others already on their feet scanning for threats. Students were screaming, pointing toward the eastern wing of the temple where smoke was beginning to rise. Master Celis ran to meet him. What happened? We felt something through the force connection, a surge of alarm. Where is Storm? Gandalf demanded, his voice cutting through the confusion with urgent authority. Where is the student called Storm? Master Taran's tattooed face went pale. Storm Keral, a Mirialan girl, 16 years old, talented with both Ashlar and Bogan techniques. She's been... He stopped, realization dawning. She's been unusually withdrawn the past week, claiming she needed time alone to meditate. We thought she was working through normal adolescent struggles with balance. She's been corrupted, Gandalf said bluntly. The entities below have spent weeks preparing her. They're using her to break the Western prison. Where would she go? Where in this temple could she access the deep vaults without being seen? Master Koreth arrived, his red face grim. The Eastern Sanctum. There's a maintenance passage that connects to the lower caverns. We use it for crystal transport and vault inspections. But it's sealed, keyed to master-level force signatures. She's a talented student, Gandalf said. Given enough time and dark side enhancement, she could bypass that seal. That's what the smoke is. She's not attacking the temple. She's creating a distraction, drawing everyone's attention east while she accesses the western prison from below. Vishara snarled, her predator instincts fully engaged. How long do we have? Minutes, if we're lucky, Gandalf replied. The entities said, soon. They've timed this for maximum chaos, right after my confrontation with them, when everyone's alert and scattered, when confusion reigns. They're betting we'll waste time coordinating a response instead of acting immediately. Then we don't coordinate, Master Celis said, her scholarly demeanor replaced by decisive action. Mithrandir, you know the prisons better than anyone now. Take whoever you need and stop Storm. The rest of us will secure the temple and prevent any other students from being used as secondary distractions. Gandalf nodded sharply. Master Taran, you're with me. Your connection to the students is strongest. You might be able to reach Storm even through the corruption. Master Koreth, I need you as well. Your knowledge of the prison structures is essential. What about me? Vishara demanded. Secure the Eastern Sanctum, Gandalf ordered. If this is a diversion, there might be a real attack coming. Don't let them catch us with our defenses scattered. They didn't waste time with further discussion. Gandalf led Taran and Koreth at a run through the temple corridors, his staff blazing with light that carved paths through the growing smoke. Students pressed against walls to let them pass, their young faces frightened but trusting. The maintenance passage entrance was indeed open, its heavy stone door hanging askew, the force lock mechanism blackened and destroyed by dark side energy applied with surgical precision. She's stronger than she should be, Taran observed, examining the destroyed lock. This would challenge most masters. For a 16-year-old student to accomplish it, she's not operating on her own power anymore, Gandalf said grimly. The entities are feeding her strength through the crack in the western prison. They've been doing it for weeks, gradually increasing her capabilities while making her believe she's simply growing more talented. By the time she realized something was wrong, she was already too invested in the power to walk away from it. They descended into the maintenance passage, a crude tunnel with minimal lighting, designed for function rather than beauty. The air grew colder with each step, and the wrongness in the force intensified. Dark side corruption clung to the walls like frost, marking Storm's path as clearly as footprints in snow. She's afraid, Taran said quietly, reading the emotional resonance in the corrupted trail. Terrified, actually. She knows what she's doing is wrong, but she can't stop herself. The entities have convinced her that this is the only way to become strong enough to matter, to be special, to escape being ordinary. The same lie that's destroyed countless promising students across the ages, Gandalf murmured. The promise that power equals significance, that strength determines worth, that only the extraordinary deserve recognition. They reached the lower caverns and heard it, a young voice chanting in the ancient language of force rituals, the syllables coming faster now, more desperate, each word adding to the resonance that was making the western prison's crystal matrix vibrate at increasingly dangerous frequencies. Gandalf rounded the corner into the prison chamber and saw her. Storm Corral was small for her age, her green Mirialan skin marked with the traditional diamond-shaped tattoos that denoted her clan. Her eyes were closed in concentration, her hands raised toward the western prison, dark side energy flowing from her fingertips into the hairline crack. The crack was wider now, not a fracture anymore, but a fissure, spreading like lightning across the purple crystal surface. Inside the prison, the entity was laughing. "Storm!" Master Terran called out, his voice gentle despite the urgency. "Storm, please stop! You don't have to do this!" The girl's eyes snapped open, revealing irises that glowed with unnatural violet light. "Master Terran, I wondered when you'd arrive. Too late, though. I'm almost finished. Just a few more syllables and the prison breaks. Finally, someone who understands true power will be free. Finally, I'll have a teacher who doesn't tell me to hold back, to maintain balance, to be less than I could be. That entity will consume you the moment it's free," Gandalf said, stepping forward with his staff raised but not threatening. "You know this. Somewhere beneath the corruption, you know this is death." "Better to die extraordinary than live ordinary," Storm replied, but her voice cracked slightly. The violet glow in her eyes flickered. "Better to matter for one moment than be ignored forever." "Who told you that you were ordinary?" Gandalf asked, genuine sadness in his voice. "Who convinced you that quiet strength is worthless, that steady growth is insufficient, that being one among many rather than unique above all is a fate worse than death?" Storm's hands trembled, her chanting faltering. "Everyone, no one, the whole galaxy. I've trained for years, mastered my techniques, maintained perfect balance. And what has it earned me? I'm still just another student. Still just Storm Carroll, the girl who's good but never great, the one who's reliable but never remarkable." "I know that pain," Gandalf said softly, lowering his staff completely. "I walked among beings of incredible power for ages, always steady, always reliable, always good, but rarely great. The flashy heroes got the songs, the dramatic warriors got the legends, and I was simply Gandalf, the Grey, neither white nor black, neither spectacular nor terrible, just present, just persistent, just there when needed." "Then you understand," Storm whispered, tears cutting through the violet glow in her eyes. "You understand why this matters, why I can't go back to being invisible." "I understand the temptation," Gandalf corrected gently, "but I also learned something across those ages of apparent ordinariness. The quiet ones, the steady ones, the reliable ones, the ones who show up and do their work without demanding recognition. We're the ones who actually change the world. The flashy heroes burn bright and fade fast. The dramatic warriors win battles, but lose wars. But those of us who persist, who adapt, who keep showing up day after ordinary day, we shape the future in ways even we don't fully understand." The chanting had stopped entirely now. Storm stood frozen, her hands still raised, tears streaming freely down her green face. "But I'm tired of being ordinary. I'm so tired of it." "Then be extraordinarily ordinary," Gandalf suggested with a slight smile. "Be so reliable that people build their lives around you. Be so steady that in moments of crisis everyone turns to you. Be so present that your absence would leave a hole nothing could fill. That's a power the darkness cannot offer because it requires precisely what the dark side cannot sustain: patience, consistency, and genuine care for others." Master Terran stepped closer, his own voice thick with emotion. "Storm, you're one of my best students, not because you're the most powerful, but because you never give up. You work harder than anyone else. You help younger students without being asked. You maintain equipment without seeking credit. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary in the ways that actually matter." The violet glow in Storm's eyes was fading now, replaced by her natural dark brown. But her hands were still raised, still channeling energy into the crack, as if her body was continuing the ritual independent of her will. "I can't stop," she whispered in horror. "I want to stop, but my body won't listen. The entity, it's controlling me. It's finishing the ritual through me whether I consent or not." The western prison pulsed with triumph. The entity's voice filled the chamber. Thank you, child, for your weakness, your doubt, your desire to be special. You gave us exactly what we needed, an open door. Now step aside, we're coming through. The crack widened further, purple light bleeding through, taking form, beginning to coalesce into something terrible and vast. Gandalf moved with speed that belied his elderly appearance. He crossed the distance to Storm in 2 long strides, placed his hand on her shoulder, and channeled pure Maiar fire through the connection. Not burning her, but burning through her, purging the dark side influence, severing the entity's control, flooding her system with light so intense that darkness couldn't coexist with it. Storm screamed, but it was a scream of release rather than pain. The dark energy flowing from her hands cut off instantly. But it was too late. The ritual had reached critical mass. The Western prison's crystal matrix was resonating at the frequency the entities had been preparing for 3,000 years. Even without Storm's continued channeling, the structure was collapsing. "Get her out of here," Gandalf commanded, shoving Storm toward Master Taran. "Both of you, run, now." "What about you?" Corrith demanded. "I'm going to do something very stupid," Gandalf replied, turning to face the shattering prison. "Something I've done before, actually. It didn't end well last time, but circumstances were different. I'm told I'm allowed to learn from my mistakes." The prison exploded outward in a shower of purple crystal shards. Dark energy erupted into the chamber like a geyser of concentrated malice, and from within that darkness, something ancient and terrible began pulling itself free. Gandalf raised his staff high and spoke words in a language this galaxy had never heard, the tongue of the Ainur, the language of creation itself. His staff blazed with light that pushed back the darkness, not defeating it, but containing it, bottling it, preventing it from spreading beyond the chamber. "You shall not pass," Gandalf declared, his voice resonating with power that made the entire cavern tremble. "Not today. Not while I still stand," the entity laughed. "Then we'll simply have to make sure you don't stand much longer, Wanderer." The darkness surged forward, crashing against Gandalf's barrier of light like a wave against a cliff. The wizard stood firm, but the impact drove him to one knee. His staff cracked under the strain, and the Kyber crystal at its crown began to fracture once more. Behind him, he heard Taran and Corrith dragging Storm toward safety. Good. At least the girl would survive to learn from this. At least she would have another chance. As for himself, well, he had fallen into darkness before. If he had to fall again to protect this temple, this order, this galaxy that had welcomed him despite being a stranger, so be it. The darkness pressed against Gandalf's barrier like a living thing, testing, probing, searching for any weakness in his defense. The entity that had been imprisoned for 3 millennia was not fully corporeal yet, still transitioning from pure dark side energy into physical form, but its malevolence was palpable enough to make the air itself seem corrupted. "You cannot hold forever, Olorin!" the entity hissed, its voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Your staff is breaking, your strength diminishes, and I grow stronger with every moment I taste freedom." Gandalf's response was to drive his staff harder into the stone floor, channeling more power through the fracturing crystal. White fire blazed brighter, pushing the darkness back another few feet. "I don't need forever. I only need long enough." "Long enough for what? For your Jedi masters to mount a rescue? They're scattered above, dealing with panicked students and smoke diversions. For reinforcements to arrive, there are none. You are alone, wizard, truly alone for the first time since arriving in this galaxy." "I've been alone before," Gandalf replied, his voice strained but steady. "In the depths of Moria, falling through darkness with a demon of the ancient world. I was alone then too, and I emerged from that fall stronger than I entered it." "You died in that fall," the entity countered, its dark form beginning to solidify. Vaguely humanoid but wrong, proportions twisted, features sharp and cruel. The wanderer who fell was not the wanderer who returned. You were remade, reforged, sent back by powers that exist in your universe. But those powers cannot reach you here. If you fall now, you fall permanently. The entity was right. The Valar could not intervene across dimensional barriers. If Gandalf died here, there would be no return as Gandalf the White. This death would be final. But the entity had made a crucial error in its taunting. It had given Gandalf time. Time for the other masters to feel the disturbance through the Force. Time for them to organize a response. Time for the protective wards around the prison chamber to fully activate, sealing the exits, preventing the darkness from spreading upward into the temple proper. And, most importantly, time for Gandalf to understand exactly what kind of entity he faced. "You're not what you claim to be," Gandalf said suddenly, his ancient eyes narrowing. "Thalas called you his prison mate, implied you all chose imprisonment together. But you didn't, did you? You were captured, bound against your will. The others may have sought redemption through isolation, but you sought only escape." The entity's forming features twisted into something approximating a smile. "Clever wizard. Yes, I am Velshara the Unyielding. I fought the Jedi to the last, refusing to accept their justice, rejecting their authority to judge me. They imprisoned me, not to protect me from myself, but to protect themselves from me. And now, after 3,000 years of rage, I will show them why I should have been destroyed rather than contained." "They couldn't destroy you," Gandalf observed. "You're tied to the living Force too deeply. To kill you would damage the Force itself in this sector. That's why the prisons, not mercy, but necessity." "Does it matter?" Velshara laughed, fully corporeal now. A towering figure of dark robes and violet energy, eyes like burning coals, hands ending in claws that seem to cut reality itself. "However I came to be here, I'm free now. And I will remake this world in my image before expanding to the stars beyond." Gandalf's barrier flickered. His staff's crystal was spiderwebbed with cracks, barely holding together. His Maiar essence was strong, but channeling it through a damaged focus while simultaneously holding back an entity of this magnitude was pushing him to his absolute limits. He needed a different strategy. "Master Selis!" Gandalf's voice echoed through the Force, projecting upward with desperate urgency. "The Western prison has failed. Seal the chamber from outside. Do not let anything through, no matter what you hear." Above, he felt Selis's acknowledgement, and her horror at what sealing the chamber meant. It would trap Gandalf inside with the entity. No escape, no retreat. A final confrontation with only one possible outcome. The sealing wards activated. Massive stone slabs ground into place across the chamber's entrance. Force barriers layered over them, creating an isolation so complete that even sound couldn't penetrate. Velshara's laughter filled the sealed space. "You've imprisoned yourself with me. Have you gone mad, Wanderer? Or simply accepted the inevitable?" "Neither," Gandalf replied. He lowered his staff and the barrier of light dissipated. "I've simply changed tactics. I cannot hold you forever through brute force, but I don't need to hold you. I need to understand you, contain you, and ultimately bind you to something stronger than kyber crystals." "There is nothing stronger than—" Gandalf struck his staff against the floor one final time and the crystal exploded. But instead of shattering into useless fragments, the pieces hung suspended in the air, glowing with combined light. Blue and white and silver and gold, every color Gandalf had ever channeled through that focus now blazing independently. The wizard's Maya essence, freed from the constraining focus, spread throughout the sealed chamber like dawn breaking through storm clouds. "I am Olorin," Gandalf declared, his voice resonating with power that made reality itself ripple. "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. I have walked in darkness and returned. I have died and lived again. And I tell you now, Velshara the Unyielding, your imprisonment was mercy you did not deserve, but I offer it again nonetheless." He raised his hands, and the floating crystal fragments orbited around him like a constellation of tiny stars. Each fragment began to sing, not audibly, but through the Force, a harmonic frequency that resonated with the very foundations of reality. Velshara struck with all the fury of 3 millennia of captivity. Dark energy lashed out like whips, tearing through stone, reducing ancient formations to dust. But each attack that came near Gandalf was deflected by the orbiting crystal fragments, the darkness shattering against light that refused to yield. "You cannot defeat me," Velshara roared. "I am ancient, I am eternal, I am the inevitable end of all things." "No," Gandalf replied calmly, walking forward despite the maelstrom of destruction around him. "You are a being who chose power over wisdom, who chose domination over service, who chose rage over peace, and those choices have consequences." The crystal fragments began to expand, their orbits widening, filling the chamber with geometric patterns of light. Gandalf was creating something, not a cage, but a binding, a fundamental restructuring of the Force's flow within this sealed space, channeling it all toward a single purpose, containing Velshara not through walls, but through harmony. "The Jedi imprisoned you in Kyber because they couldn't kill you without harming the Force," Gandalf continued, his voice taking on a rhythmic, almost musical quality. "But they were thinking too small. Kyber is a focus, a channel. It can be broken. But what if instead of imprisoning you in crystal, we imprisoned you in balance itself? Made you part of the Force's natural equilibrium, unable to act without disrupting the very energy that sustains your existence?" Velshara's attacks grew more desperate, more chaotic. The entity understood what Gandalf was attempting, a binding so fundamental, so intrinsic, that breaking free would require destroying the Force itself in this region of space. A prison made not of matter, but of metaphysical necessity. "You don't have the power!" Velshara shrieked. "You're injured, exhausted, far from your source of strength. This galaxy is not your home." "True," Gandalf acknowledged, "but I'm not alone." He opened his connection to the Force completely, dropping all barriers, all protections, making himself a pure conduit. And through that connection, he felt them. Every master meditating above, every student offering what strength they could, the entire temple functioning as a single unified will, channeled through one very old, very stubborn wizard. The crystal fragments blazed brighter, the harmonic resonance intensified, and slowly, inexorably, the patterns of light began to close around Velshara like a net woven from the Force itself. "No!" the entity howled. "I was free! I tasted freedom! You cannot take that from me again!" "I'm not taking it from you," Gandalf said quietly. "You're surrendering it. Because freedom without wisdom is just chaos. Power without purpose is just destruction. And you've had 3,000 years to learn that lesson. Apparently you need more time." The binding completed. Velshara's form froze, locked in place not by physical restraints, but by the Force's own equilibrium. The entity couldn't move without disrupting the fundamental balance that sustained its existence, couldn't attack without harming itself, couldn't escape without unraveling its own consciousness. Perfect imprisonment through perfect balance. Gandalf collapsed to his knees, utterly spent. The crystal fragments fell around him like gentle snow, their light dimming but not extinguishing. The chamber was quiet now, the terrible battle over, leaving only an exhausted wizard and a paralyzed entity locked in metaphysical stalemate. "It won't last," Velshara whispered, its voice barely audible. "Eventually, I'll find a way to break this, to escape, to..." "Perhaps," Gandalf interrupted tiredly, "but by then, I'll have taught this galaxy how to create proper prisons. how to bind darkness without creating martyrs, how to oppose evil without becoming it. And when you do eventually break free, if you break free, you'll find a galaxy far better prepared to face you. Silence fell. Then, from beyond the sealed chamber, Gandalf heard hammering, the masters breaking through the stone barriers to reach him. "Master Mithrandir," Celis's voice called through the thinning barrier. "Are you alive?" "More or less," Gandalf called back, managing a weak smile despite his exhaustion. "Though I could use some help getting back to the surface, and perhaps some tea. I've developed a terrible fondness for tea after that particular exertion." The barriers fell away. Masters poured into the chamber, stopping short at the sight before them. Gandalf kneeling in a circle of dimly glowing crystal fragments, Velshara frozen in mid-strike like a statue of pure darkness, and the entire chamber humming with a force resonance that felt both alien and perfectly natural. Master Koreth approached slowly, his red face reflecting wonder. "What did you do?" "Something between your Jedi techniques and my Maiar nature," Gandalf explained, accepting Taran's help to stand. "A binding that uses the Force's natural balance as the prison. Velshara exists now in a state of perfect equilibrium. Any movement toward darkness is automatically counterbalanced. It's not permanent, but it should hold for, several centuries at least, long enough to train proper guardians, long enough to teach better methods." Master Celis was staring at the frozen entity with scholarly fascination. "This is revolutionary. This is exhausting," Gandalf interrupted gently. "And I would very much like to not discuss its theoretical implications while standing in a chamber that still smells of dark side corruption. Might we return to the surface? I believe we have one student who needs attention more than this entity does." Storm Corral was waiting in the courtyard, surrounded by concerned masters, but looking small and broken. When Gandalf emerged, she immediately tried to run, but Taran held her firmly, not cruelly, but preventing flight. "I'm sorry," Storm sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I nearly destroyed everything because I wanted to be special, because I was weak and vain and—" Gandalf crossed to her and placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. "You were vulnerable. There's a difference. Weakness is refusing to admit fault. Vanity is believing you were uniquely terrible. You were simply a student who made mistakes, painful, dangerous mistakes, but mistakes nonetheless. What matters now is what you learn from them." "How can I learn from this?" Storm asked miserably. "How can I ever be trusted again?" "By being trustworthy," Gandalf replied simply. "Day after day after day, by showing up, doing your work, helping others, and never again letting anyone convince you that ordinary dedication is somehow insufficient." He lifted her chin so she met his eyes. "You wanted to be extraordinary, then be extraordinarily reliable. Be the student others can count on absolutely. That's a power the darkness can never offer." Storm nodded slowly, tears still streaming, but something like hope beginning to kindle in her eyes. The sun was setting now, painting Ossus's sky in shades of amber and purple. The crisis had passed, the entity was bound, the student was saved. But Gandalf knew, with the certainty of ages, that this was merely the first battle in a longer war. 4 entities still remained imprisoned below, and they had learned from Velshara's attempt. Next time, they would be more careful, more patient, more cunning. But next time, Ossus would be ready. 3 days after the Western prison incident, the Jedi Council convened with unprecedented purpose. Word had spread across the temple. Mithrandir, the Wanderer, had accomplished something the Order had believed impossible for 3,000 years. He had created a new form of imprisonment, one that used the Force's own nature as the binding mechanism. Every master on Ossus wanted to understand it. More importantly, they wanted to replicate it for the remaining 4 entities. Gandalf stood before the council once again, though he looked markedly different than during his first appearance. His grey robes were worn and singed in places, his beard showed more silver than before, and his staff, or what remained of it, was now a simple wooden shaft wrapped in cloth strips that held the recovered crystal fragments in place. It was crude, makeshift, but it still hummed with quiet power. "The technique cannot be easily replicated," Gandalf explained to the assembled masters. "It required a perfect storm of circumstances, my Maiar essence providing a binding force outside the force's normal operation, your collective meditation providing the power, and Velshara's own nature making her vulnerable to balance-based imprisonment. The other entities will not fall to the same approach." Master Celis looked disappointed. "Then we've gained a temporary victory, but no lasting solution." "Not quite," Gandalf corrected. "We've gained knowledge, understanding, and most importantly, we've shaken the remaining entities' confidence. They believed they were inevitable. We've proven they're not. That changes everything." Master Korith leaned forward, his red skin almost glowing in the chamber's crystal refracted light. The other 4 prisons remained structurally sound. Velshara's escape was possible only because of the hairline crack that had been forming for weeks. But the entities inside are now fully alert, fully coordinated, and fully aware that their prison mate's freedom lasted mere hours before being recaptured. "Let them be aware," Gandalf replied. "Fear is as powerful a deterrent as any physical barrier. They fear me now. They fear what I represent, change, adaptation, the possibility that their ancient power means nothing against beings who can think in ways they cannot predict." Master Vishara's tail lashed thoughtfully. "What about Storm Carol? She's become a focal point for the other students. Some view her with pity, others with contempt. How do we address the division her actions have caused?" Gandalf's expression softened. "By treating her neither as victim nor villain, but as a student who made a terrible mistake and is working to redeem herself. I've been teaching her personally these past days, and I can tell you, that girl has learned more about genuine strength in the past 72 hours than most students learn in years. Suffering is an excellent teacher, though a harsh one." "And the technique you used to bind Velshara?" Master Terran asked. "Can it be taught to our masters, even if not perfectly replicated?" Gandalf considered this carefully. "The fundamental principle can be taught. Using the Force's natural balance as a binding mechanism rather than external containment, that's sound theory. But executing it requires either immense personal power or," he paused, an idea clearly forming, "or a coordinated network of Force users all channeling toward a single purpose, like what you did when you anchored me during the binding." Master Celis's eyes lit with scholarly excitement. "A ritual, a formal technique that requires multiple masters working in harmony. That would prevent any single individual from becoming a target of corruption. No one person would have the power to free the entities, making manipulation far more difficult." "Precisely," Gandalf agreed. "And it would reinforce the core principle of your order, balance achieved through community, strength through cooperation, power through shared purpose rather than individual dominance." The council members exchanged glances, silent communication flowing through the Force between them. Finally, Master Korith nodded. "We will develop this technique, but it will take time, months, perhaps years. In the meantime, what prevents the remaining entities from attempting what Velshara did?" "I do," Gandalf said simply. "I'll remain on Ossus until the new binding rituals are perfected and applied to all 4 remaining prisons. Consider me your resident expert on ancient evils that refuse to stay properly imprisoned." Master Vishara smiled, showing teeth. "And after? When the prisons are secured and the technique is taught? Will you finally leave us, Wanderer?" Gandalf returned the smile, though his was gentler. "Eventually. I am called a wanderer for a reason. I'm not meant to stay in one place forever, but I'll remain long enough to see this work completed, long enough to ensure Storm and other vulnerable students have proper guidance, long enough to... He trailed off, looking toward the chamber's windows where twin suns painted the evening sky in gold and crimson. Long enough to what? Celis prompted. To understand why I was brought here, Gandalf finished quietly. The Force pulled me across dimensional barriers for a reason. Stopping Velshara was important, yes, but I don't believe it was the only reason. There's something larger at work, a pattern I'm only beginning to perceive. The visions in the Grove of Balance showed me a future where your order fractures, where balance is forgotten, where extremism becomes the norm. I need to understand if I'm meant to prevent that future or simply prepare students to survive it. The chamber fell silent. The weight of Gandalf's words hung in the air like morning mist, visible but intangible, present but difficult to grasp fully. Finally, Master Korith spoke, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen enough centuries to recognize patterns others missed. The Force works in cycles, Mithrandir. We rise, we fall, we rise again. If you're glimpsing the future fracturing of our order, then perhaps your purpose is not to prevent it, but to plant seeds that will grow after the fracture, teachings that will survive the splitting, carried by students who will remember the Wanderer's wisdom when formal doctrine fails them. Seeds, Gandalf repeated, the word resonating with him. Yes, that's how I operated in Middle-earth as well. I didn't defeat Sauron directly. I planted seeds, courage in hobbits, honor in kings, wisdom in wizards who came after me. The victory was achieved by those I guided, not by my own hand. Then guide us, Celis said earnestly. Teach us not just your binding technique, but your philosophy, your approach to fighting darkness without becoming it, your way of walking between power and restraint, between action and patience, between certainty and doubt. Gandalf looked at each council member in turn, seeing in their faces the genuine desire to learn, to grow, to prepare for challenges they couldn't yet name, but could sense approaching like distant thunder. Very well, he agreed. But understand, I will not teach you to be like me. I will teach you to be more fully yourselves, to understand your own natures well enough that corruption finds no purchase, to recognize manipulation before it takes root, to make hard choices without pretending they're easy. And above all, to remember that balance is not a destination you reach, but a practice you maintain through constant, conscious effort. How long will this teaching take? Master Taran asked. Gandalf's eyes twinkled. How long does it take a tree to grow? How long does it take wisdom to sink from mind to heart? These are not lessons learned in weeks or months, but we can begin immediately, starting with Storm Carol and those students most vulnerable to the same temptations that nearly destroyed her. Over the following weeks, Gandalf established what would later be called the Grey Teachings, not a formal curriculum, but a series of conversations, demonstrations, and shared meditations that emphasized self-awareness over technique, wisdom over power, and community over individual excellence. He worked primarily with students who struggled with balance, those who leaned too heavily toward passion or too completely toward serenity, those who hungered for recognition or who hid their light behind false modesty, those who were, in essence, the most human in their flaws and therefore the most vulnerable to corruption. Storm Carol became his primary example. He didn't hide her mistakes or pretend they hadn't happened. Instead, he used her story as a teaching tool with her permission. She stood before groups of students and masters alike, describing exactly how the entities had approached her, what promises they'd made, how the corruption had felt from the inside. It didn't feel evil, she explained to one such group, her voice steady despite the shame that still colored her Force presence. It felt like finally being seen, like finally mattering. The entity convinced me that wanting recognition was the same as deserving it, that my frustration with being ordinary was actually a sign of hidden greatness. And by the time I realized I was being used, I was too invested in the power to walk away from it. "What changed?" a young Zabrak student asked. "What made you stop?" Storm glanced at Gandalf, who nodded encouragement. "Master Mithrandir told me that being extraordinarily ordinary was more powerful than being spectacularly terrible. He showed me that the students I'd been dismissing as ordinary, the ones who showed up every day, did their work, helped others without seeking credit, they were the ones actually changing the temple. They were the ones masters relied on. They were the extraordinary ones, and I'd been too blind with jealousy to see it." The teaching spread, not as formal doctrine, but as stories shared, as insights that rippled through the student body, as a gradual shift in how the Jedi of Ossus understood strength and significance. And deep below, in their sealed prisons, the 4 remaining entities felt their influence waning, felt students growing resistant to manipulation, felt the temple becoming something they could no longer easily corrupt. They raged in their imprisonment. They plotted new approaches, but they also began to fear. Because the Grey Wanderer had taught Ossus something they couldn't counter: how to find strength in community, wisdom in humility, and power in choosing every day to be better than yesterday. Months passed, seasons changed, and Gandalf's staff, carefully repaired by Gorvash with new techniques that incorporated both Jedi crystal bonding and the wizard's Maya essence, began to take its final form. Not the simple wooden shaft he'd carried from Middle-earth, but something new, something that belonged to this galaxy while honoring what he'd been. The crystal fragments were arranged in a spiral pattern now, each one glowing with different aspects of the Force. Ashla and Bogan, living and cosmic, light and shadow, all in perfect, dynamic balance. The staff hummed with potential, waiting for the moment when its power would be fully needed. That moment was coming. Gandalf could feel it in his bones, in his connection to the Force, in the way the remaining entities had grown suddenly quiet. They were planning something. Something larger than Velshara's escape. Something that would test everything Gandalf had taught, everything Ossus had learned. The true battle was still ahead. 6 months after Gandalf's arrival, Ossus faced its final test. The attack came not from below, but from above. A fleet of dark side cultists, Force users who had heard rumors of the imprisoned entities and sought to free them, descended upon the planet with the fury of zealots who believed themselves righteous. 30 ships, carrying 200 warriors trained in aggressive Force techniques and armed with ancient Sith knowledge. They had been gathering for months, drawn by whispers in the dark, by visions sent by the 4 remaining entities, by promises of power if they could free beings imprisoned for millennia, and they had timed their assault perfectly. During the Festival of Balance, when most Jedi Masters would be engaged in ceremonial meditation rather than combat readiness. The first blasts struck the temple's outer defenses just after dawn. Gandalf was in the courtyard when the shields flared, absorbing impacts from orbital bombardment. Students scattered in panic, but the Masters moved with disciplined purpose, years of training overriding fear. "Battle stations!" Master Koreth's voice boomed across the compound. "This is not a drill! Protect the deep vaults at all costs!" Master Vashara was already running toward the hangar bays, her warriors' instincts fully engaged. "They're trying to create a breach, land troops to fight their way to the prisons from above while we're defending from potential escapes below." Gandalf stood perfectly still for a moment, his newly completed staff planted before him, its spiral of crystals beginning to glow with increasing intensity. He extended his awareness through the Force, feeling the attackers' positions, their intentions, their coordination. "They're not just raiders," he announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard through Force amplification. "They're organized. led by someone who understands Jedi defenses. This is a calculated military assault, not a zealot's crusade. Master Celis appeared at his side, her scholarly demeanor replaced by grim determination. The entities below, they've been quiet for weeks. We thought they'd given up, but they were coordinating this, weren't they? Reaching out through the Force to every dark side cult within 100 systems, promising power, gathering an army. Precisely, Gandalf confirmed. Velshara's capture taught them they couldn't break free through corruption alone, so they're trying brute force instead. Break the temple's defenses, breach the vault chambers, shatter the prisons from outside while the entities push from within. Can we hold? Master Taran asked, his tattooed face set with determination. Gandalf's eyes swept across the assembled masters and students, some frightened, some angry, all looking to him for guidance despite his status as an outsider who'd walked among them for mere months. We can, he said firmly, but not by fighting in the way they expect. They're counting on us to defend the vaults directly, to concentrate our forces below ground where their landing parties can overwhelm us with numbers. Instead, we're going to do something they can't anticipate. What? Koreth demanded. We're going to evacuate the students to safe locations, seal the deep vaults completely, and then we're going to bring the battle to them. Gandalf's staff blazed brighter, its spiral of crystals casting rainbow patterns across the courtyard. We're going to show these cultists exactly why attacking a temple full of Force users who understand balance is a catastrophically poor strategic decision. The plan came together with surprising speed. Students were ushered into reinforced meditation chambers that could be sealed from inside. The deep vaults were locked with every ward and barrier the Jedi possessed, making it impossible to breach them without weeks of sustained assault. And 30 of Ossus's finest masters, including Gandalf, moved to meet the landing parties head-on. The cultists came expecting frightened defenders. They found something else entirely. Gandalf led the counterattack personally, his staff blazing with light that seemed to pierce through the dark side corruption the cultists carried like a shroud. He moved through their ranks, not with the fury of a warrior, but with the precision of a surgeon, disabling rather than killing, disarming rather than destroying, creating openings for the Jedi masters behind him to neutralize threats with minimal bloodshed. "You fight like you're holding back!" one cultist snarled at him, dark side lightning crackling from her fingertips. "I am holding back," Gandalf replied calmly, deflecting the attack with a gesture that sent it harmlessly into the ground. "I always hold back. That's what separates me from you. I choose restraint. You've surrendered to impulse." He swept his staff in a wide arc and the cultists' weapons flew from her hands. "Choose differently. Walk away from this. It's not too late." She spat at him and reached for a vibroblade. Gandalf sighed and tapped his staff against the ground. The Force itself seemed to respond, creating a localized gravity well that pressed the cultist gently but firmly to the ground, immobilized but unharmed. "It's always too late for some," he murmured, moving past her toward the next wave. Master Velshara fought with feral grace, her lightsaber a blur of green light that seemed to predict her opponent's moves before they made them. She had embraced Bogan during this battle, not surrendering to it, but channeling its passion and fury through the discipline of decades of training. It made her terrifying and beautiful simultaneously. Master Taran fought alongside Storm Kerril, who had volunteered to help despite her recent disgrace. The girl's technique was imperfect, her confidence still rebuilding, but she fought with desperate determination, not to prove herself, but to protect the temple that had given her a second chance. "Behind you!" she shouted, intercepting a cultist's blade strike meant for Taran's back. The Zabrak master dispatched his own opponent and nodded gratefully. "You're learning, Storm. Trust your training." "I'm trying," she replied, her lightsaber humming as she deflected another attack. but they're so strong. Strength without wisdom is just noise, Taryn reminded her, repeating one of Gandalf's frequent teachings. Let them be loud, you be effective. The battle raged for hours. The cultists were numerous and fanatical, but they lacked coordination. They fought as individuals seeking personal glory, whereas the Jedi fought as a unified whole, each master supporting others, creating defensive networks that turned the cultists' aggression against them. And throughout it all, Gandalf was the linchpin. Wherever the fighting grew most intense, wherever Jedi seemed overwhelmed, the Grey Wanderer appeared with his blazing staff and shifted the balance. But the cultists had one final strategy. Their leader, a Sith pureblood named Cronus, who claimed to have received visions directly from the imprisoned entities, broke away from the main battle and led a strike team directly toward the sealed vault entrance. They carried shaped charges designed to pierce force barriers, technology stolen from ancient Sith ruins. Gandalf sensed the maneuver immediately. He disengaged from his current opponents and ran toward the vaults, his old legs carrying him with speed that defied his appearance. Master Celis and Master Koreth followed, along with a handful of other masters who recognized the danger. They arrived just as Cronus's team was setting the charges. "Stop!" Gandalf commanded, his voice resonating with Maiar authority that made reality itself seem to pause. "You're being used. The entities below don't care about you. They'll consume you the moment they're free." Cronus laughed, his red face twisted with zealous conviction. "They've promised us power beyond imagination. They'll teach us secrets the Jedi have suppressed for millennia. We're not being used, we're being liberated." "The oldest lie in any universe," Gandalf replied sadly. "The promise that power equals freedom, that strength determines worth, that domination is the natural order. I've heard it before. I'll hear it again. And it's still wrong." "Then you'll die still wrong," Cronus snarled, igniting his lightsaber, a red blade that pulsed with barely controlled fury. The final confrontation began. Cronus was powerful, genuinely talented, trained in techniques that most Jedi would consider forbidden. His strikes came with the force of absolute conviction, each blow meant to kill rather than disable. Behind him, his team continued working on the charges, racing against time. Gandalf met each attack with practiced ease, his staff weaving patterns of light that deflected the red blade without directly engaging it. He was buying time for the other masters to disable Cronus's team, to prevent the charges from detonating. "You can't defeat me," Cronus growled, his attacks growing more desperate. "I'm fueled by the dark side itself. I draw power from my rage, my hatred, my absolute certainty." "Yes," Gandalf agreed, almost conversationally despite the deadly combat. "That's precisely your weakness. Rage burns hot but brief. Hatred consumes the hater before the hated. Certainty makes you predictable." He pivoted smoothly, and Cronus's blade struck empty air. "I've been fighting for millennia, young one. I've learned that the slow, steady flame outlasts the wildfire every time." Behind Cronus, his team fell, not killed, but disabled by masters who had neutralized the charges and now turned their attention to the strike team itself. Cronus felt his support collapsing, felt his plan failing, felt his promised power slipping away. And in that moment of desperate realization, he did exactly what Gandalf had been waiting for. He reached toward the sealed vault entrance with the Force, abandoning technique for raw power, trying to tear through the barriers through sheer dark side fury. The barriers held, but more importantly, Cronus's uncontrolled assault created a feedback loop. His own dark side energy rebounding from the wards, striking back at him with the full force of his own attack. He collapsed, his body racked with force lightning of his own creation, screaming as his own hatred consumed him from within. Gandalf approached the fallen cultist leader and knelt beside him. You were warned. You chose poorly, but you're not beyond redemption even now. He placed his hand on Cronus's shoulder, and healing light flowed through the connection, not forgiving the cultist's actions, but preventing his self-inflicted attack from killing him. "Why?" Cronus gasped, confusion and pain mixing in his voice. "I tried to destroy everything you've built. Why save me?" "Because I've learned that destroying your enemies doesn't end the cycle of violence," Gandalf replied quietly. "It simply creates new enemies who seek revenge. But showing mercy, giving even those who've earned destruction a chance at redemption, that sometimes breaks the cycle entirely." He stood, his staff dimming as the immediate threat passed. "You'll be imprisoned, Cronus. You'll have years to contemplate your choices. And perhaps, if you're fortunate, you'll emerge wiser than you entered." The cultist said nothing, his eyes closing in exhausted defeat. Across the temple grounds, the battle was ending. The cultist forces, leaderless and demoralized by Cronus's capture, were surrendering or fleeing. The Jedi had held, the vaults remained sealed, and most importantly, not a single student had been harmed. Master Korath surveyed the aftermath, his red face showing both satisfaction and exhaustion. "They'll tell stories about this battle for generations, the day Ossus withstood an army." "No," Gandalf corrected gently, leaning heavily on his staff now that the adrenaline was fading. "They'll tell stories about the day the Jedi proved that balance isn't weakness, that restraint isn't cowardice, that you can defend yourselves without becoming what you oppose." He looked toward the sealed vaults, where the 4 remaining entities raged in impotent fury at their plan's failure. "That's the lesson that matters. That's what will echo across the centuries." Master Celis approached, her scholarly robes torn but her expression triumphant. "The prisoners are being processed. Most are simply misguided. They can be rehabilitated. But there are a few, like Cronus, who will require long-term containment. Treat them with dignity," Gandalf advised, "even in imprisonment, especially in imprisonment. How you treat your enemies says more about who you are than how you treat your friends." Storm Carol emerged from the battlefield, her lightsaber deactivated, her face smudged with dirt and exhaustion. She approached Gandalf hesitantly. "Master Mithrandir, I wanted to thank you for letting me fight, for trusting me despite what I did." Gandalf smiled warmly. "You earned that trust, Storm, not through one heroic act, but through months of consistent effort, through showing up every day and choosing to be better than yesterday. That's genuine strength. That's the kind of power the entities below can never offer, because it requires exactly what they lack: patience, humility, and the willingness to grow slowly." The girl nodded, tears cutting clean tracks through the grime on her green face. "I won't let you down." "You'll let yourself down sometimes," Gandalf replied honestly. "We all do. The question is whether you learn from those moments or let them define you. Based on what I've seen these past months, I believe you'll choose wisely." As evening fell over Ossus, the temple began the work of repair and recovery. The physical damage was minimal. Most of the fighting had occurred in open courtyards designed to withstand such assaults. But the emotional and spiritual impact ran deeper. The council convened one final time in Gandalf's presence, this time not to question or evaluate, but to honor. Master Korath stood before the assembled masters and students, his voice carrying across the great hall where the entire temple had gathered. "Mithrandir the Grey, wanderer from beyond, Olorin of the Maiar. You came to us as a stranger 6 months ago, pulled through dimensional barriers by the Force itself. You stayed when you could have left. You fought when you could have fled. You taught when you could have simply demonstrated power and claimed authority." He gestured, and 2 students approached carrying a folded cloth. When they unfolded it, Gandalf saw it was a robe. grey like his own, but marked with the symbols of the Jedi Order woven in silver thread along the hems. "We offer you formal membership in our order," Korith continued, "Master of Balance, Teacher of the Grey Path, Guardian of Ossus, if you'll accept." Gandalf looked at the robe for a long moment, his ancient eyes distant. Finally, he shook his head gently. "I'm honored beyond words, truly. But I cannot accept formal membership. I am, as you said, a wanderer. My path lies in movement, in arriving where I'm needed and departing when my work is complete. To join your order permanently would betray my nature and my purpose." Disappointment flickered across many faces, but Korith simply nodded, as if he'd expected this answer. "Then we offer something else. Not membership, but acknowledgement. Let it be recorded in our histories that Mithrandir the Grey walked among us, taught us, saved us, and then continued his journey. Let future generations know that balance can be found not only within our order, but in beings from beyond our galaxy. Let the Grey Path he taught remain part of our traditions, even after he departs." "That," Gandalf said with genuine warmth, "I can accept." Master Celis stepped forward, holding a small holocron, newly created, its crystal matrix still glowing with the energy of fresh recording. "We've documented everything, your teachings, your techniques, the binding ritual you used on Velshara, Storm's testimony about corruption and redemption, all of it preserved so that even when you're gone, your wisdom remains." Gandalf took the holocron carefully, feeling its weight, both physical and metaphorical. "Then my time here has not been wasted. Seeds have been planted. Whether they grow into mighty trees or remain as quiet reminders of what's possible, only time will tell." "When will you leave?" Master Taran asked quietly. "Soon," Gandalf replied. "Not immediately. There's still work to be done securing the remaining prisons, training masters in the new binding techniques, ensuring Storm and others like her have the support they need. But soon. I feel the pull already, the sense that my purpose here approaches completion. The Force has other places where I'm needed, other students who require teaching, other darkness that must be opposed." Master Vishara's tail lashed once, a gesture that had become almost affectionate. "You'll be missed, old wizard. Ossus won't be the same without you." "Good," Gandalf replied with a slight smile. "If I've taught you anything, I hope it's that things should never remain exactly the same. Growth requires change. Wisdom requires adaptation. Balance requires constant adjustment. If Ossus remained unchanged by my presence, then I truly would have failed." The ceremony concluded with meditation, the entire temple joining in a unified Force technique that Gandalf had taught them, one that connected every individual consciousness while respecting their independence. It felt like music, like harmony, like 1,000 voices, singing the same song with 1,000 different variations. In that moment of perfect connection, Gandalf felt the Force's purpose crystallize with sudden clarity. He had been brought here not to prevent the coming schism of the Jedi Order. That was inevitable, already woven into the future like threads in a tapestry. He had been brought here to ensure that when the Order fractured into those who would become Jedi and those who would become Sith, there would remain a third memory. A memory of the Grey Path, of balance maintained through wisdom rather than dogma, of power tempered by restraint, of the possibility that light and dark could coexist without one consuming the other. That memory would go underground during the millennia of Jedi-Sith conflict. It would be forgotten by most, dismissed as legend by others, but it would survive in whispers and secret teachings, waiting for a time when the galaxy grew tired of absolute extremes and sought a third way forward. Gandalf would not see that time, but he had planted seeds that would. 3 weeks later, Gandalf stood at the spaceport on Ossus's outskirts. A simple transport ship waited. Nothing fancy, just reliable passage toward the unknown regions where the Force was calling him next. His staff was strapped across his back, his grey robes, not the ceremonial Jedi version, but his own worn traveling clothes, fluttering in the morning breeze. Master Celis, Korith, Taran, and Vashara had come to see him off. Storm Keral was there too, along with a dozen other students he'd taught most closely. "Will we ever see you again?" Storm asked, her voice small but steady. "Perhaps," Gandalf replied. "The Force moves in mysterious ways, and I have a terrible habit of appearing precisely when I'm needed, even if I'm not expected." He placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. "But whether I return or not, remember what you've learned. Be extraordinarily ordinary. Show up every day. Choose balance not because it's easy, but because it's right. And never let anyone convince you that quiet dedication is somehow insufficient." She nodded, tears threatening but held back through sheer force of will. Gandalf turned to the masters. "Continue the work. Perfect the binding techniques. Teach the grey path to those who need it. And when your order fractures, and it will, I've seen the inevitability in the Force. Don't mourn the split. Honor what you've built here. Preserve what wisdom you can, and trust that even in division, the seeds of eventual reunification can be planted." "That's a depressing prophecy," Vashara observed. "But a realistic one," Gandalf replied. "I've watched civilizations rise and fall across ages. The cycle is natural. What matters is ensuring that each fall plants seeds for the next rise, that each ending contains the beginning of something new. That's what you've given me the privilege of helping you do." Master Korith stepped forward and placed both hands on Gandalf's shoulders, a gesture of deep respect in Jedi tradition. "Walk in balance, Mithrandir the Grey. May the Force be with you, wherever your wandering leads." "And with you," Gandalf replied. "All of you. Always." He boarded the transport without looking back. He'd learned long ago that goodbyes were easier when kept brief. The ship lifted off smoothly, climbing toward the atmosphere, toward the stars, toward whatever the Force had waiting for him in the vast, unknown regions. Below, on Ossus's surface, the Jedi stood watching until the ship was just a speck against the twin suns. Then they returned to their temple, to their students, to their eternal work of maintaining balance in a galaxy that would test that balance in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But they were ready, because an old wizard had walked among them and taught them that wisdom matters more than power, that restraint is a form of strength, and that the quiet ones who show up every day, the extraordinarily ordinary, are the ones who actually change the world. The legend of Gandalf of Ossus had begun, and though the galaxy would forget his name 1,000 times over the coming millennia, the essence of his teachings would survive, in whispers, in secret techniques, in the memory of the grey path that existed before the Jedi and Sith divided the Force between them. Some called it myth, others called it history. Gandalf would have called it simply doing what was necessary, when it was necessary, because someone had to. Years became decades, decades became centuries. The Jedi Order fractured exactly as Gandalf had foreseen, splitting into those who walked entirely in the light and those who embraced the dark. The temple on Ossus became a battleground, then a memorial, then a ruin reclaimed by nature. But in the deepest archives, protected by wards that survived even catastrophe, a holocron remained. Celis's final gift, containing everything Gandalf had taught. It waited through the rise of the Jedi, the birth of the Sith, the endless wars that would define the galaxy for 25,000 years. Occasionally, in moments of greatest need, stories would surface. Whispers of an ancient wanderer who walked before the schism. a grey master who taught balance when balance seemed impossible. Some dismissed these tales as legend. Others searched the ruins of Ossus hoping to find proof. A few succeeded, and those few carried forward teachings that the galaxy had forgotten. That power without wisdom destroys. That certainty without doubt blinds. That light and dark need not be enemies if practitioners remember they're walking the same path from different directions. Gandalf himself wandered the unknown regions for decades before the Force pulled him elsewhere, perhaps to another galaxy, another dimension, another group of beings who needed to learn that ordinary dedication changes the world more reliably than spectacular heroism. He left behind no monuments, no temples bearing his name, no order claiming his legacy, only students who remembered, only teachings that endured. Only the quiet truth that a wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to. And in a galaxy torn by endless conflict between absolute light and absolute dark, that was the most revolutionary teaching of all. May the Force be with you. More stories await.